Welcome to the Kayak Fishing Obsessed Podcast. We'll be sitting down with a fresh guest each week. Someone who shares the same kayak fishing passion that runs through our veins. We're talking kayak anglers, kayak companies, lure experts. Heck, anyone who's got a story to tell about landing the big ones from a kayak. We're setting our sights on becoming the #1 kayak fishing podcast in the world. You'll get a chuckle, a grin, and hey, maybe even a belly laugh. Because we believe in the power of humor. But above all, we're here to educate and inspire. So, whether you're a seasoned kayak angler or just dipping your toes into this exhilarating world, join us on the Kayak Fishing Obsessed Podcast. It's time to reel in adventure, camaraderie, and the joy of the catch. Here's your host, Daren Wendell.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 42 of the KFO show, Kayak Fishing Obsessed. If you love kayak fishing, fishing in general, you are in the right place. Tonight I have Andy, the bearded paddler, on tonight, and we're going to be talking about the best fishing kayaks of 2023. And we're going to break this down by a ton of different categories. Best, kayak under $1,000, best paddle kayak, motor kayak, because he kind of brings a unique perspective. Is which I wanted to bring, why I wanted to bring him on the show. He also got a YouTube channel, the whole deal. And so if you're live, bring your questions, especially if you're thinking about getting into a new kayak or potentially upgrading a kayak. So that's going to be awesome. If you're listening in for the podcast, thank you so much. I would love to hear from you. And so please reach out to me via Instagram, via YouTube. I would love to hear that you're out there, because there's not a really great way for you to make comments on the podcast itself. As you can probably notice, I am not in my studio. I am on the road. I'm down here in Nashville, Tennessee. And for those of you listening in only on the podcast, I have my travel mic with me. And so it doesn't sound nearly as good as the one that is permanently attached to my studio desk. And so I apologize a little bit, but it doesn't sound as good as it usually does. But enough of all that stuff. Let's go ahead and bring Andy over from the green room. Andy, welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. I am tired. I just got done driving 4.5 hours in traffic, and my eyes are tired. But you know what? I'm pumped about this conversation because you manage one of the largest kayak retail stores in the country.
Yeah.
And I believe that you have a unique perspective to bring to the table. And so everybody start thinking about all the questions you ever want to ask anybody, someone who actually sells them day to day. To consumers who come in who have a lot of questions. We'll be diving in and learn a little bit, but let's back out from that. We'll circle back on that in a little bit. But I'm insanely jealous of your beard. For those of you on the podcast, a lot larger and fuller and thicker than mine. So that's freaking awesome. Second,
Appreciate it.
why YouTube? How'd you get into that? And tell me a little bit of your story and background.
So that's an interesting question. So I never in a million thought I'd be doing this personally. So first of all, I've been fishing from a small paddle boat since I was a kid. I grew up right here in North Arkansas on the Buffalo River, old aluminum flat bottom boat with the 2 oars. And I grew up bank fishing. And the first time I got in just a simple watercraft, got that out on the water, and I was able to access some different areas that I wouldn't normally able to get to. It just changed my whole perspective on it. What got me into YouTube was getting started in the paddle industry, working in retail. The first thing that I would get, of course, when someone comes in the store, typically about 75% of our customers are beginners. They've never been in it. They might have saw a video on YouTube, and some of the information out there was just not the best. I feel like there's a lot of things out there. I mean, there's a million things out there, but some of it's just maybe some AI videos of somebody trying to sell you something. There's always a lot of lists out there, top 10 this, top 10 that. And there's no real knowledge or insight behind it. And, when someone comes in, of course, none of our workers are commission based. So I feel like it's the best way to go about getting someone in the right boat for the right price. So the first questions we ask them is, what kind of water are you floating on? Is it rivers? Is it lake? Are you fishing? Is it recreational floating? And what's your budget? What's the ceiling there? But then they'll say, hey, I saw this on YouTube and they were, that someone was doing this. And then it was just like, well, that's not safe or that's not true. So I was like, well, I've got access to all of this great product. Why not do just information purpose? I started doing it in February and it just kind of took off. It kind of snowballed from there. And
this year?
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, you already got like 5,000-6,000 subs.
Yeah. It's been wild. It's been wild. And then the company I work for, we have 5 different stores, and my boss found out about it through, I guess, customers on the other end of the state coming in from Oklahoma saying, hey, we watched this video, this bearded paddler guy, and I guess they had got on it and saw it was me. So because I kind of did it on the side, just saying, hey, just information, non-biased, because again, I'm not selling anything online or anything. So it was just meant for just to have a library of just review, kind of bow to stern, just, overview of what's on these kayaks, because there's so many options. And I got started, watching Chad, the first video of you I watched was the DIY, the first DIY keel guard.
Oh, okay.
My first fishing kayak was a new canoe, and of course, have the keel guard. I'm thinking, okay, well, that might be something I want to look into, and then watch some more of your videos, watch some of Chad's videos, and
that's where you got all your ideas about all the bad information coming that people brought into your store.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there, and honestly, it started around COVID because the industry blew up, and you started seeing a lot of these. And I'm not by any means throwing shade on anybody. It's mostly there's a lot of pop-up, I call them pop-up companies you never heard of before COVID. And of course, the outdoor industry, the RV industry, the kayaking industry really blew up during that time. So a lot of these companies started just rotomolding a kayak or thermoforming, the 2-piece construction of kayak, outsourcing it from overseas. And getting into that, you saw just the market flooded with just all of these options, and just a way to kind of filter through it on what's quality, what's worth your money, and what's not. Because I go through Facebook groups all the time. I don't comment on a lot of it, but I see a lot of questions, and usually what it is it always starts the same way, and it's almost comical, where someone will get on there and say, "Hey, I'm new to the kayak fishing, and what's the best first kayak?" And then they don't know what's coming at them. They're going to get flooded. And what it is it's whoever's trying to sell something. So pro staff guys, and I saw a little bit that you and Chad talked about, which I thought was great. Pro staff guys will get in there. And then also anybody that's in a kayak, they'll just start spitting out their whatever kayak they're in right now.
Right.
And you'll get things from Lifetime, Walmart kayaks, all the way up to Hobie Pro anglers, and nobody even knows what kind of water they're on or what they're even wanting to do or what their budget is. So I feel for the beginner out there. I really do, even from my profession standpoint, not just YouTube. There's so much information, and it muddies the water so much that it causes more questions than answers.
Well, that's a problem, because a lot of us who go out there starting a channel hope to clarify,
absolutely,
not cause more questions. And I mean, I'm sure some people do it better than others, but what would you say top 3 most confusing people come into your store? Like, hey, I've watched, because my local store, Falls Outdoors, I was having a conversation with him once. He said people come in with binders, like 2 years of research that they have done. I mean, like, they're getting ready to spend $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $6,000 some cases, and they have done their research and they're ready to buy. But some people just walk in the door like, hey, I want to get started, and I've done some research, but I'm really confused. I got so many more questions I have answers. What are the top 3 things that people are hearing out there on YouTube that you were just incorrect?
Stability. The number one thing that confuses people is stability. Everyone is so concerned with stability, and it's just knowing the difference between, say, a primary and a secondary stability. And again, Chad did a really good video on kayak stability where I thought he explained it really well on primary and secondary and why it's not good to go full on primary, how it's good to have a little bit of a looser secondary stability. Because that's usually the first question I get asked when someone comes in is this kayak stable?
I don't want to fall out.
Yeah. Can I stand up and fish from this? And that's really tricky because it depends on the person. You ever go to like South Florida or see any of those boats and you'll see like guys standing on the tips of those things when the surf is so choppy and I can't even stand up straight and he's out there not even holding on to anything. Your sea legs matter. Obviously, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. But there's so many people that they'll watch a video and they'll have someone doing like a stability test or something, and they say, "Oh, well, okay, I'm just going to go out and buy this," because some people have no budget. They're retired. They're just they just sold their $50,000 bass boat, and it's like, "Hey, kayaking, let's do it." and so they'll get out there and they'll watch a couple of YouTube videos, or some of them, like you said, will watch a lot. And
a lot.
I was one of those people. I'm a researcher. I like to know what I'm doing or know what I'm talking about before I do it. I'm not really impulsive in that way. So I did a lot of research before I bought my first kayak. And then when I got into a store and actually saw it and sat down in it, I realized, okay, I hate this thing. Like it wasn't comfortable, and all this stuff I saw, like how it paddles and how great it is doing this. And I sat in it and I was like, okay, I'm uncomfortable. So I'm looking at the wrong kayak.
Do you remember what that was?
Yeah.
It was uncomfortable for you. So
for me. I'm 6'5". At the time I was about 280. So I was a bigger guy, and I was looking at what was it? I was in a budget at the time. So I was looking at the Perception Tribe 9.5. Had no idea what I was looking at. So I saw, it's got a frame back seat. And any kayak that you look at, there's always going to be a video out there of someone just with a glowing review of it, and then just researching it. It's, it's US made, it's rotomolded. It kind of checks some of the boxes. And I sat in it and I'm like, okay, this is not what I really need. The suspension frame seat kind of spoke to me personally. And then of course, we bought our kayaks. We spent a little bit more than we were intended on, but we felt better for that long term. So that's why I'm so big on quality. To me, I go by the saying, buy your second kayak first. Even if it takes,
I like it.
Yeah. Even if it takes a little bit more time. So if someone's got maybe that $500 budget, there's nothing wrong with waiting a couple of months, adding a couple $100 to that. To my opinion, I think in that $500 to $600 range, just going $100, $150 more than that really kind of gets you into a different kind of stratosphere of kayak, whether you're recreation or just fishing. And, hey, if you're just using it once in a while, it's still worthwhile, whether you're just planning on, hey, I just want to see if I like it, because resale is a big thing. You may hate it. I doubt it if you're in the right kayak, but you may hate it. And then you can sell it on the market, get close to what you paid for it, and then you're no worse for wear on that.
Yeah. So Ken over here in the comments, he asked, what's considered budget? When you say budget, frame that for me.
To me, now when you're talking about fishing kayak, that's kind of tricky. I'm always with the belief that you can fish out of any kayak, but honestly, to me, anything under $500, I would consider budget. When you get below $300, you're almost getting into the disposable range. If it's, do you want to buy the disposable kayak, or do you want to buy something that's going to last you a little bit longer? And I understand budget's a thing, so I'm never going to be one to tell someone how to spend their money, but my job's usually to tell people why it's beneficial just to spend just a little bit extra. In our store, the way I've got everything arranged, when you walk in the door, you're starting with the most inexpensive, and then it goes up from there. So it allows people to see kind of what an extra $100 or $150 gets you. And usually it's the seat. You can go over storage options, you can go over things like that. But when you start going up in budget, that's usually when your seat gets a little bit better, a little bit more adjustable, adjustable foot pegs versus molded foot pegs. You start getting a little bit more comfort features and some storage features as well.
Well, really quick, I'm curious. So walk me through your store. Like I just did a video called, what's the difference between a $50 and a $250 rod? And kind of walk us through the store. You're looking at, and give us price ranges, like 1 to 500, you see this. Whenever you usually go from 5 to 7, you usually see this. Walk us all the way up, like you're walking us through the store.
So when you walk in the store, the first thing you see is the Perception, kind of lower end, just rec basic kayaks, maybe what I call a bridge kayak. So for youth between youth and adult, those are going to range anywhere from $400 and up. And you're talking about the Perception Rambler, the Tribe 9.5. And then when you get
plastic seats, right?
Yeah. You got a little bit more of that molded gel pad seat, but it's basically a sticky pad on top of a molded plastic seat.
You got it.
And then when you get a little bit more than that, then you're starting to get into like the Pescador Pro from Perception, which the frame seat. And in my opinion, the Pescador Pro is probably the best value in kayak fishing, just because it's under that $1,000 price point. You can get it in a 10.5, 12 foot, it kind of checks a lot of boxes. The Tarpon 100 from Wilderness Systems always been a staple of the kayak industry. The problem right now that you're seeing is price point. So what used to be $700 is now $1,100. The last 2 or 3 years has really kind of seen the prices go up exponentially. And you've seen what used to be popular. You've seen a lot of competition around it kind of come up around it. And as that boat gets higher in price, you've got competitors making boats with more features at a lesser price point. So, and I'm not talking about blowing it out of the water. A $500 kayak is just not going to compare to a $1,000 kayak, and it shouldn't. But the Tarpon 105 used to, that's been the probably the number one selling kayak in our area for decades.
Really?
And now, instead of it being $699 or $799, now it's $1,119.
It's doubled.
Yeah. And
how many years?
I believe it was $899 in 2021.
Okay.
And then and even Jackson kayak has gone, a lot of kayaks have had to go up, but then you started to see that kind of plateau, and some of them have even scaled back. I know Jackson has reduced their MSRP on a couple of their kayaks. Bonafide actually went down a little bit on some of their kayaks. I think the SS 127 and the 107 both went down, I think $50 for 2023 from the previous year. So I think some manufacturers might have overestimated, because the reason why is plastic, it's petroleum based. So when your oil prices went crazy there a couple of years ago, your raw materials, plus you're paying more people to do you're paying more for people to do the same job. And then some people, you're paying a new person to do it. So you started to see some quality issues, nothing bad, but just, we might've got some stuff in. They were missing some screws and some bolts, or, people just trying to rush and get this stuff out because the demand was so high and the supply was just nowhere near where it needed to be. Last 2 years have been a crazy time, specifically 2020 and 2021. The demand was so high. Everybody had a stimulus check. So everyone had like $1,300 burning a hole in their pocket. And, they heard this kayak stuff. And I know and where I work specifically, my location, we can carry anywhere from 1,300 to 1,400 kayaks. And we got down to 8.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And we're talking
That's
MSRP
crazy.
only. We couldn't discount anything because we couldn't replace what we're selling. We didn't know when the next trucks were coming in, and everybody was just having a hard time keeping up with that.
That is wild. Absolutely wild. Here, we got a
Yeah.
bunch of questions back here. I got a ton of questions. Let me see here. Peyton Hatfield, she says, "Hey, Andy, just found your channel a few weeks ago. I grew up in Springdale, and my parents still live there. Where is your shop? I'd love to come by."
So Springdale, we have 5 different locations. I work in the Cotter, Arkansas location, which is kind of northeast Arkansas.
Okay.
We have a location over there in Garfield, which is over there by Pea Ridge, which is, closer to Rogers area, which is where she's close to. And we've also got a new location in Siloam Springs, which they just opened up a whitewater kayak park, kind of a man-made park over there, which we're really excited about.
Nice. Awesome. We got Bookman Bassin said, "Hey, I got to check out both your guys' YouTube channels." My man, I believe he's from Cincinnati. That's awesome. Lost in Tackle. I have a question here. He says, "MacGyverable DIY do-it-all budget kayak. What's your recommendation if someone comes in and tells you that?"
Man, so and again, I always try not to be biased, but we've all got our favorite stuff.
Oh yeah.
I absolutely love the new canoe lineup. Granted, it's not what I'd call budget, but when you're talking about a wide open deck space kayak with a flat transom on it, it gives you a lot more budget friendly options. If you wanted to do like a transom mount motor, if you can put the pedal drive on it, or we did a kayak fishing, event here a couple of weeks ago at the store. There was a guy that had a Pescador Pro, I believe it's a 12-footer, and he made his own pedal drive on it. It was wild. I've got it on my shorts feed on my channel, but he'd rigged up a bicycle pedal on the front. He had cables going to the back of it, and on the back, it had these like plexiglass paddles. It looked like an old circular paddle boat on the back of it. And he's got video of him just going through there. It reminds me of those old showboats. Back, it's got that big paddle. Yeah, is exactly like that. Had his own rudder set up back there, and you could tell he'd been an engineer or something. He'd cut all this stuff just really, really nice. And I've seen some crazy stuff. I saw someone put a Hobie Pro Angler pedal drive, the flipper fins on a canoe. Yeah,
on a canoe.
Yeah. And again, him and his son were engineers, and they were asking me all of these crazy questions, and I'm like, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Well, I got a canoe, and we're wanting to put that on it." I'm like, "Well, how on earth?" And he was telling me about what he was doing. I'm like, "That could work, I guess."
Maybe
it's not something I can condone. As far as, I don't know. It's hard to say what you can or can't do with something, because there's a safe way of doing something and a unsafe way of doing it. But some of the setups out there are really ingenious. And that's kind of we have sponsored groups, kayak fishing groups, that will give gear or gift cards for their kayak tournaments. And so we brought them all together, and so they've got all of their kayak fishing setups all rigged out, and Jackson's, Native, Bonafide, Old Town. I believe we had a Pelican there too. I mean, like I said, we don't discriminate on that, but anything from just the most basic setup to someone's that maybe runs a live scope on it. And I mean, it's gotten crazy, and in a good way, but you're starting to see the lines between boat and kayak kind of blurred a little bit.
Yeah. A lot of people are upset about that. I see a lot of people kind of wanting to keep that line separate, and they get like a little vocal about it.
Part of me understands that a little bit. So, but my thing that I always tell people is, when you're talking about live scope and electronics, it doesn't make a bad fisherman good. It makes a good one great. You still, at the end of the day, you still got to know how to read it. And one person that I always watch is Christine Fisher.
Yeah.
And of course, she's the one that's got like the dual graphs. She was the first one I saw do that. And one of the tournament fishing videos she did, she talked about getting back to reading the graphs, maybe because she doesn't like video game fishing, is what she called it. I thought that was really neat, because still your seasoned fishermen are going to still rely on those instincts, looking for cover, looking for bait fish, signs of life, looking for the, bird life. there was a guy that posted here yesterday. I thought was a really good point. Bird life. When he sees birds around there, that's where he goes and fishes at. If you see an osprey diving down, or if you see crane, or if you see even around here we have bald eagles everywhere.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah.
if you see those around, they're not going to be there if there's not any fish or any food. So that's usually what I look for, is just wildlife. If you see nothing going on around there, there's probably not a lot of fish around there.
Makes sense. Good tips for you. I know I got like 1,000 herons on my lake. The problem is there's 1,000 of them and they're everywhere. So I can never really pinpoint.
Yeah.
Then you got to watch to see if they're actually eating or not. They're just perched up there chilling.
Yeah.
Oh man. Christine Fisher. I've asked her to come on the show a couple times. So, hey, if you see one of her videos, like, hey, go to your email and go find Wendell Fishing's invitation to the show. Cause I'd love to have her on. Think it'd be
I'm assuming she's pretty busy. She seems to be. I don't have any contact with her, but as I said, I'm a YouTube guy. I'm a fan of watching content just as much as I am of creating it. I like to get ideas too. So one thing I've tried to do in the beginning, it was just me with my cell phone, just talking about a boat. And then now I've tried to make the videos a little bit more enjoyable. So I'm starting playing around with a little bit more production, a little bit different angles. I don't want to get too far into it because I'm not looking to become a Hollywood director. I'm still looking to get information out there. But the biggest thing is reaching more people, reaching the most amount of people I can.
All right. Well, I got to choose your own adventure for you. I got 3 questions that you can choose which one you want. So you talked about quality, right? And so when someone walks into a store, what should they look for? Number 2, diminishing returns on fishing kayaks. Where does that start in your head? When do you start seeing diminishing returns? So it's like, okay, once you get over a certain dollar amount, for the most part, we're speaking in generalities here.
Yeah.
And the 3rd question I forgot, so I'm going to forget about it. So you got to choose your own adventure with 2 of them.
So I can answer those both really quickly. To me, it's U.S. made roto-molded kayak. That, to me, that's the first and foremost. That should be your starting point. Whether that's a perception kayak or a Hobie kayak, that's really up to what you're doing, what you're wanting to do with it. Mm-hmm. As far as diminishing returns, you're starting to see a little bit of that now. You're starting to see companies run sales. You're starting to see the used market. The bubble is starting to burst a little bit on the used market because now there's so many kayaks out there. So, and I know just from watching some of your stuff, I think all of your kayaks have been bought secondhand.
All of them, yeah. All 2 of them, and I found one in the river.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that's what you're seeing now. So the deal that you're getting is better now on the used market than it was just a couple of years ago, because there were people getting over retail for their used kayaks because you couldn't buy the new one. And as long as it was in good shape and there was nothing wrong with it, you were getting some crazy stuff. Now, if you're looking for a specific kayak, there could be 8 of them out there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you look at? You're going to look at the lowest price one. So people are constantly just trying to sell that quickly. Maybe they watched a video, bought a kayak and never took it out, and they're just looking to get rid of it.
I bought one of those. Guy went out once, and then I got $1,000 shave off of it. It was my P127.
That's a great kayak, by the way.
It is.
Yeah.
It really, really is. I mean, there's a couple complaints people have with water coming up to take the scuppers off, but it's bone dry if you keep them in. And then that tracks well. It's solidly built. The pedal drive's the boss. If you love the propel drive, instant reverse, man, I love that thing.
To me, in my opinion, and again, I'm not sponsored by anybody. I don't get kickbacks on anything. To me, Big Adventures, which of course is native, bona fide, I just put my crystal ball in front of me. They're going to be the players, in my opinion, here in 2024. The stuff that they're coming out with is just innovative. I filmed a video today. We were one of the first people to get our hands on the bona fide SKF, the Skiff 117. The PWR 129, that is probably my fastest growing video that I did. And I just did the reaction to they're unveiling on their website.
Right.
The Titan X, you're getting motorization, you're getting, things that are already integrated. So like your listener asked, the MacGyver effect, it's going to get to where some of these kayaks are made from the factory where you're not having to MacGyver it. And I'm not talking about like accessories you're buying from the company, accessories that you're getting in the aftermarket. It's going to be easier to put that stuff on. You're not going to have to be an engineer to do some of the stuff to these kayaks. They're going to be made to be kind of that Swiss Army effect with them. Hobie's still doing their thing. Jackson, I'm a Jackson fan. I own a Jackson.
It didn't sound like it just now.
Yeah, Jackson. To me, Jackson is they're a quality company that is. I think the innovation is kind of starting to pass them by a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm hoping they come up with something a little bit more innovative. I know I put out the videos. They just unveiled they brought back the Big Rig FD with the new pedal drive, and they brought back the Cruise FD, which is a little bit more of a wreck pedal drive kayak. But these are two boats that they've done in the past. So
right, the innovation, right? You brought back an old design.
Yeah, it was very split, which I thought was really interesting because I definitely like to gauge comments on my videos. I'm like, are people liking this? Are they not liking it? And it was split down the middle. It was like Democrats and Republicans there. It was, you got, your Jackson guys, they love it. They love the Big Rig. And then you got people that were you had all these teaser videos about the unveiling and the blankets coming off. And then it's like, okay, it's the 89 Toyota Tacoma. It's a great kayak, but it's got a new seat on it and it's got a new motor in it, but it's a good solid kayak, but it's a value thing now. And that's what a lot of companies are failing to see, I think. So the Big Rig FD at $39.99, that's a $4,000 kayak. And you've got the Titan X coming out at $36.99, and that's got the swivel seat, that's got the bow and the stern mount, it's got the power ports, it's got storage, it's got everything. And that's a hard sell to make. And I'm just, somebody's got a lot of money. It matters to everybody what they're going to spend their money on. If you're putting that kind of money up, you want something that you can grow into, or if you decide just to keep it bare bones, be happy with it.
That's your second kayak for your first purchase.
Exactly. And nobody spends that much money with the thought, well, I'm just going to upgrade it in a year anyway.
No, not that money. Like your
99%
entry level, 1,000 and below,
wanting something they can keep forever. Whether they do or not, that's one thing. But that's your thought. It's like, well, I can keep this for a long time. Having that kayak sickness from personal experience, working in the industry does not help that addiction. I think I've been there 3 years now. I think I've had 5 kayaks. So there's so much coming out year after year. So many people want to push that envelope. I know Old Town did the EPDL, which, time will tell. It's definitely innovative.
For sure. Innovative.
If somebody is wanting a electronically assisted pedal drive, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of fishing kayaks out there that are trolling motor ready. And I feel like that's kind of where everyone's going, is the trolling motor route. And then personally, I would like to see more companies do a lighter throw and go fishing kayak.
All right.
I think that's kind of where the industry, in my opinion, is going toward, is you're starting to see everyone's got these big lake fishing kayaks. Now people are kind of, that might've been in the budget to buy a large Hobie Pro Angler, but then they say, well, that thing's so heavy and I got to buy stuff just to haul it around.
Launch it. Right.
Yeah. And I want to go out on the rivers and creeks a little bit. I want to smallmouth fish. And you start seeing like Bonafide's RVR, you start seeing Crescent Shoaly, you start, but there's not a lot of those out there. Jackson used to have it in the Coosa. So I think you're going to start to see people starting to, the river fishing, was it creek fishing adventures? That's another one I enjoy watching. People like that kind of put the eyes back on what most of us grew up doing. Most of us didn't grow up fishing from the bank in a large lake.
No,
It's,
you're
rivers
chomping
and
through the
creeks and
creeks.
streams. And, we're blessed here. We have some of the most beautiful waterways in the country, I think. And 75% of our customer base are river and creek fishing and recreational floaters. So that's kind of, we have large lakes here too. We have 2 very large lakes within 5 miles of us. So it's not Lake Gunnersville or anything, but we have Bull Shoals Lake, which is a multi-state lake. And then we have Lake Norfolk right next to it. But, when you're talking about rivers and creeks, you're talking about Buffalo River. We have White River here with trout fishing. There's a lot of benefits to marketing that river and creek fishing kayak.
Yeah. Hey, for those of you who are asking questions, I'm going to circle back to this. I had a few things I wanted to promise that we talked about today. No, this is great. I love it. You're bringing the juice. So, I mean, you have such a unique perspective from seeing a lot of buyers, answering a lot of questions, seeing a lot of the incorrect information out there, confusing individuals. And so, but I'm coming back around to all these questions. I'm starring them, just let everybody know. So keep asking them, and I'll circle back. But what are some of the questions I have for you? So, oh man, you talked about Bonafide and Big Adventures, the umbrella company. Why did you choose them as the kayak company to watch? They're going to take number 1, essentially, what I heard from you.
Sure. So Bonafide and Native, of course, to me, Native, that's the most durable pedal drive out there. Yes. You've got a marine grade aluminum, and that.
Oh yeah.
It really is durable. They make that heavy duty hull design. So, people, when they got lake fishing kayaks, they're running them up on the ramps, on the asphalt, and those things are just built like tanks. But with Bonafide, they've always been really popular. I'm talking about like the SS127 and the smaller version, the SS107. Really comfortable, like lazy boys on a dock type kayaks. That tri-hull design, customizable. But when they brought out the RVR this last year, that kayak did really, really well. Because again, creeks and rivers. I had a guy that works with me that he did the Buffalo National River at flood stage on an RVR. He did the entire river in 2.5 days.
Wow.
So that's normally about a 6 or 7 day float. Again, they're pushing that envelope. Having a drop down skeg in a kayak, in my opinion, it's like having 2 separate kayaks in one. And then the skiff boat that they're coming out with. Now they've announced the Power 129, which I think is going to give the New Canoe Unlimited a run for its money.
Okay.
The Power 129 will be $18.99 is what they're announcing next year.
Well, really quick, back it out.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I haven't even watched a video on it yet. I just heard it talked about. So explain what it is and what value and innovation you believe it brings to the market today.
So none of us have seen one yet. It's strictly off their website. It's basically, it looks like a hybrid between the RVR and the SS127. So the SS127 is a big catamaran style hull design, and the RVR is not as extreme. Basically, you don't have these 2 big pontoons coming all the way down, which creates a lot of drag when you're trying to steer a boat.
Right.
It's very stable, but it's not going to be fast in the water or turn really quickly. The RVR kind of brought those catamarans up a little bit. They created a little bit more rocker, which is basically where the front end and the back end kind of come up a little bit and allows you to turn a larger kayak a lot easier. But the Power 129,
which is where your secondary stability comes from, right?
Yes, very much. The Power 129 is basically, so they got the Titan X with the pedal drive. It's basically if somebody wanted to motorize a Titan X but didn't want to pay for a pedal drive, the Power 129 is going to be a kayak that has basically, you're going to be able to mount your motor on the front or the back. You have access plates where you can drill into them. You can mount, you can do your wiring through it. It's basically going to be as close to a no drill setup, no matter what you want to do, that's really been put out there. And at $18.99, it's not cheap, but the Unlimited next year is probably going to be about that same price.
Okay.
But with this, it has a rudder integrated in it already. It has foot steering already on it. You still have the front storage hatch. There's a lot of things with that kayak that's already included in that price. I just think it's going to be the best value out there, unless somebody just comes up with something crazy. That's probably the kayak that I'm most excited to see, just for what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where they're going, was the ease of rigging out your next fishing kayak. And again, these are kind of becoming bass boats that you can throw in the back of your truck.
Right.
And that's what I like about it. You don't need a big trailer. You don't need to, I see it all the time. Someone just yelling at their wife, backing down that boat down in the ramp, and it's like, no, you don't even have to go to the ramp. You just kind of go in the grass. Anywhere where the water meets the land is good for a kayak launch. And that's why I prefer kayak fishing to bass boat fishing or, anything like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Unlimited is the fan favorite for stability. I mean, so you're thinking, I know you haven't been in one, but you're thinking it gives it a run for its money on stability as well?
Yes. So I did a video here a couple of weeks ago. I did an SS 127 versus the Unlimited because they're both around that same price range.
Mm-hmm.
They both have some features, but they have some fundamental differences. And I felt like the SS 127 did paddle a little bit better, but you did get a little bit more stability out of the Unlimited. But my biggest difference between those two kayaks was the SS 127, you got more value out of the box. In other words, how it comes from the factory, there's more value there, but you have a higher ceiling with the Unlimited. So this is fish finder, motors, electronics. You can go crazy with the Unlimited, but with the SS 127, you have foot pegs that already are dual purpose, to go into foot steering. You already have the pod system in the middle for your electronics. You have the front hatch that has the reversible hinges. Just means you can open it from the front or the back.
Mm-hmm.
NuCanoe has all that stuff, but it's extra options, it's extra money. And by the time you basically build that same kayak, you're north of $2,200 on that. With the power, the PWR 129, you're getting all of those features, plus you're already getting these, the spring blade rudder already integrated in it,
right?
Plus the foot steering. So if you're fishing down a running water, it allows you to control your drift, and that's a true hands-free fishing experience.
Yeah.
And not that NuCanoe doesn't have that. They have the rudder set up, they have the foot steering that you can buy there, but just talking out of the box value, I'm really excited to see that. So.
Nice. All right, man. This conversation could go for a very long time because you're just full of knowledge that I absolutely love, and I love how you present it too. You present it in a way that's understandable. It's not confusing.
And
you obviously know what you're talking about. Yeah, you love it.
I'm passionate about it. We all are. And that's we're anglers, we're paddlers ourselves. And that to me, that's the best place to get your information. Is we're allowed to demo these things, to take them on the water, see what we think. And, if somebody comes in and they don't really know, they're stuck between two things, you can tell them, I took these both out. This is what I liked about it. This is what I maybe didn't like about it. This is why you may like this one a little bit better. So
for sure. What's the number one regret that you have heard when someone buys a fishing kayak? They come back to you, you talk to them again. They're like, I wish I would have. What comes out of their mouth next?
Boat weight.
Really?
Yes.
Not stability. Their number one concern. Who cares about that anymore? Now it's how freaking heavy that thing is.
Again, you watch the videos, you get sold on something, and then you go in there. And don't get me wrong, we have people that come in there and say, hey, I want a Hobie Pro Angler 14. What do you got? It's like, well, I got these here. Which color do you like?
Right.
Buying a 150-pound kayak when you're not sure how you're going to get it to and from the water. And I've changed my conversation piece based off of that. So I was like, how are you transporting your kayak? Is it in the back of a truck? How are you going to get this thing to and from the water? Have you
They're
thought
not
about
thinking
that?
about that. They just want to buy it. They'll figure all that stuff out later. Right?
Yeah,
I have a.
yeah.
They're buying a Hobie Pro Angler 14, and they're on the fourth
I
floor of an
kid you
apartment.
not. I've sold. I think it was earlier this year. Guy come in. He was, I think, around his mid 70s, and he bought a Pro Angler 14-foot. And again, is in the budget. He always, he wanted to fish with his son, so they bought 2 of them.
Okay.
And it's a great kayak. It's just
If you're
something
wet
you
launching
gotta.
it.
Yeah, it's something you got to think about, though. You're not thinking about, okay, this is where I'm gonna put my fish finder, this is where I'm gonna put the motor, this is where I'm gonna put my black pack and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's like, okay, when you get it down to the water, and he's like, oh my God, this thing is so heavy. Because we haul it, we take it out of the store, put it in their vehicle for them, and we're showing them how to latch it down, and then they're buying trailers, then they're buying expensive wheel transport systems, or doing the Boondocks landing gear, the flip down wheels. That stuff adds a lot of money, and it's still a heavy kayak. So it makes it easier, but it's a large kayak. A lot of people have. It's hard to find a used jet ski trailer because of the kayak fishing industry around here.
Right. I was looking once. I had to convert my utility trailer into a double-decker kayak trailer.
Yeah.
I can't freaking find one, or they're so expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Because people are starting to learn what they got now. And but that's one thing I say is, these are all of the features on this kayak. The kayak does weigh, 85 pounds or 100 pounds or 125 pounds. And that's something to consider. But that's usually the big regret is they're taking the big kayaks and then now they're trading them in for maybe something a little bit lighter, but still has the same functionality. Maybe they're not using all of the features that are available, because some of these kayaks have a lot of features built into it. And a lot of times people got to ask themselves, am I really going to use that? Is that, that may be a great value overall for the kayak, but what kind of value is it for me? And that's what we always try to dig into is, with the questions is, are you using a fish finder? Like, what kind of fish finder are you using? Is it a little Garmin Striker 4? You can put that on any kayak. You don't need the retractable transducer mount underneath. You don't need the stuff on the side there. There's a lot of different ways that you can outfit any kayak for that. But man, if you're into that, you want the side scan and the live imaging and all that, hey, go for it. But
go for it. Heck yeah. So if someone came to you, let's do a little quick session.
Mm-hmm.
Your opinion, best kayak under $1,000 lake fishing.
Okay. Honestly,
someone.
And so are they a bigger guy or woman?
Let's just say just most general. If you came in just a normal person, right? Not like I weigh 500 pounds or I'm 7'2".
Honestly, I like the Jackson Bite.
Okay.
Yeah, the Bite, it's 11.5 foot. It's 36 inches wide. It's stable. It's an open deck space, removable frame seat. The Pescador Outlaw is pretty good also.
I've seen some comments over here about some Outlaw. So,
yeah.
All right.
And that's still one of my top viewed videos. That was one of the first videos I did. It still comes up in my monthly top 5. It's a great kayak and it's a great value. The only thing about it, and the Outlaw is the only kayak that I sell that I usually have a disclaimer with. And I said, hey, because on the floor it looks great.
Right.
It's flat, it's open, the seat sits really, really high. There's a lot of features on it that you don't see in a standard kayak, especially for the price. But I always tell people is that hull design, it is sluggish in the water. So if you're okay with comfort and stability over everything, it's a really good kayak. If you're wanting something that paddles a little easier, the Bite is a little bit better of an option. They're both 11.5 foot long. They're both stable. They both have good seats. But usually when somebody buys the Outlaw or 2 of them, they take it out on the lake and they try to just go a mile down and then they come back and they say, God, I was so wore out. Or we have couples that take them out here on the rivers, which is crazy. but they're okay with that. Just as long as you know your limitations of the kayak that you're looking at, it's really not a big deal. But thinking it's going to be something that's not is usually when people start to regret a purchase. So if they bought that Outlaw thinking, man, this thing is just going to cut through the water. And I saw this guy on YouTube, he was paddling it so fast. And, then they get it out there and they're just, and a lot of times, kayak handling is paddle technique. And I feel like that's something that gets skimmed over a lot too. I get a lot of people that want that really, really long paddle. And in my opinion, most people go too long on the paddle. And then they complain about how their kayak tracks, as a straight line performance.
Right.
So, I always tell people, it's like, well, how's your paddle stroke look? They're like, oh, it's good. Like, well, if you go too far out from the boat, you're doing a sweep stroke and your kayak is just going to want to start doing this. And me, I've got kind of a higher angle paddle stroke and I'm close to the edge of the boat, but I typically use a shorter paddle, even based off the manufacturer's suggestion for my size and what kayak I'm on. But that's a big thing. And the quality of your paddle too. If you've got $1,000 budget, I would much rather see someone spend a couple $100 on a paddle and then $800 on the kayak.
All right.
That's, to me, that's the motor that drives you. You don't want to put a 4-cylinder in a big SUV. And that's kind of the same thing with a paddle. A lot of people will buy the expensive kayak and then they'll go to a big box store and get like the really cheap short paddle that, it's got the baloney blades on it where you're digging into the water and it's flexing and you're not you're not going anywhere. You're doing twice the work. And the reason, I joke about that, but the reason I don't like that is if that's their first experience in a kayak, you run the risk of somebody not enjoying kayaking, thinking that they all handle like that or they're all the same, and they're really not.
Right. Oh man, it's funny. The reason I find myself I don't paddle very often. It's usually if my motor, I'm on grass and I'm gonna pull my motor up, and I realized I was like, I know I'm supposed to be paddling. My paddle stroke is off, but the reason I'm going so far wide is because I don't want to get wet.
Yeah, I tell you, a great tip is the drip rings. Most of your paddles
have one on there. I still get wet.
A lot of times people have the drip rings too close to the blade. Go away from that blade. Usually you can put your hand in between the blade and your drip ring, because what's happening is when I don't know about you, but most people, when they're dipping that paddle, they're going too deep into the water. What it's doing is it's scooping that water and throwing it on you. Yeah. So if you move your drip rings further down the shaft, try that out to see if that helps any.
That's a video, by the way. Make a video on that bad boy.
I think Fluidmaster did that a while back. I knew it before then, but I was actually looking at that of like, because when they come out of the package, usually the drip rings are all the way out to the blade, and usually that blade's going under the water, and it's like dipping a bucket in the water and just throwing it on your head. It really will. It's amazing how much water those will bring into your kayak, especially if you're in a sit-in kayak too, because that water's all collecting in there.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Can you believe we're already at 55 minutes?
Wow.
I know, right? This is good. So I'm going to spend the remainder of the time because we got a smorgasbord of questions over here I want to circle back to. So I was just starring stuff left and right. All right. Let me see here. The Creek Crawler said, kayaks have such great resale value. If you got a few $100, the biggest thing is just getting out in the water and truly appreciating the higher value kayaks.
And I'm about that. If you're happy and you're out on the water, you're winning.
Heck yeah.
That's one thing that I think gets lost a little bit. So again, I'm doing my videos on either used kayaks that we don't sell or kayak brands that we do sell. We carry pretty much all the quality brands, but I mean, if you're just wanting something to get out there and enjoy it, I'm never going to down somebody because they're in a kayak that we don't offer with our company. Or, there's been people that have used the big box store kayaks for years and years. Usually a lot of people, when they get a taste of, usually it's that friend that's got that kayak.
Yeah.
They get in that. It's like, man, this is really nice. just my biggest thing with your value kayaks is don't get something that you want to modify immediately. I get a lot of people where they'll get like a Lifetime or a Pelican kayak and they want to put a big frame seat on it. You can't, there's some DIY options out there, but when you're changing the mechanics of what that kayak was designed for, you're gonna, more times than not every time, you're, like putting a higher seat on a kayak that wasn't designed for that higher seat.
Right.
You're going to affect the handling. You're going to affect the performance. Sometimes you can even affect the weight rating of it by adding more to it. All of that factors into it. So when you see those kayaks, those really, really high seats, that hull was designed for that purpose, for that higher seat. Because the first thing someone asks when they see the Perception Outlaw and how high that seat is, like, man, I bet that thing's top heavy. He's like, no. Then I'll lift one up and show them the underneath of it. It's like, that's what's going on under there. It's like being on a dock, but you're paddling around that dock. So keep that in mind. So
for sure. Bucktail Fishing says, I have a Pescador Pilot 12, the world's okayest pedal drive.
I love that. Hey,
Bucktail, why? Or maybe you know why. I don't think I've ever seen one. So
yeah, it's basically like a Pescador Pro, and Perception has their own kind of pedal drive system. And again, I'm probably telling them something they already know. The Perception pedal drive is there's a cost saving feature there that keeps that kayak under a certain amount, and that's one thing that I always try to tell people is you do get what you pay for. I don't care what you're buying in kayak. If you got a pedal drive that's $1,000 or $1,100, that company made some changes to make that kayak that price. So you're going to be making some sacrifices. Are those worth it to you? That's the question you got to ask. But, it's none of these kayak companies. If you go to Sparta, Tennessee and see Jackson's facility, there's not these big ivory towers and these huge, there's not Mercedes-Benz and Ferraris in the parking lot. These companies aren't making just hand over fist money. You're paying for the research and development. You're paying for the engineering that designed these kayaks, the patents to these, there's a lot of involvement in that. It's not just how much it costs to put together a plastic kayak. Right. So, that's why you see some of those companies, well, they'll put something out really quick and, it's $1,000 for a pedal drive. I always tell people, it's like, you just really know that what you're paying for there is what's that pedal drive made out of? Is it mostly plastic or is it marine grade aluminum?
Right.
How is that going to look a year or two from now? And is it worth that $1,500, $2,000 investment instead of going maybe $500 or $600 and getting an established brand?
Yeah. And you and I both know the answer might be yes for the person who's like, I don't want to paddle and I'm only going out 5 times this year and the next
absolutely.
Year. And it might be absolutely not if you're like going out 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
The question is
I agree completely with that.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let me see. World's most okayest pedal drive system. I've had so many questions come to mind in our conversations. I wish I had a pad of paper because I got to have you back on again because this is awesome. All right. Lashley. Yeah, 72. Looking for first yak. A big guy, 325 pounds. Best option under 1,700. I mean, I feel like I'm just like throwing you questions left and right.
Well, for $1,700, you got a lot of options. Personally, if you're talking about big guy, I usually steer people to New Canoe. Either it's a Frontier 12, the Frontier makes a 10-foot option as well, which is really kind of overlooked, I feel. And then the Unlimited is $17.99 currently. So, and keep in mind wherever you're at, if you can find one semi-close, there's usually somebody trying to get rid of it for less than that. When I hear just a truly big guy, when I say that to 300 plus, that's usually what I put them in or steer them toward. Because keep in mind, when you see a kayak with a weight rating of 400 pounds, that doesn't mean a 300-pound person is best in that kayak, because the seat that they're sitting in may not have that weight capacity. That's the boat itself. And that's really important. Hobie actually does that. If you look at a Hobie, there's usually the weight capacity of the boat and there's the weight capacity of the seat, which they actually list. I love that they do
measure
that.
it.
Yeah. And, because again, if you got a weight capacity of 500 pounds and
it could be your electronics, your motor, your battery.
Yeah.
They're not just talking
absolutely.
about
It's not just
human.
that seat.
Right.
So, New Canoe had some issues in the past with their seat that they've corrected. They've changed the makeup, so it's a metal frame underneath it that mounts to the track. It allows you to trim that seat the length of the kayak, so it allows you to make that kayak completely different depending on where you're sitting. If you're in moving water, sitting it back brings the front of the boat up. It allows it to handle a little bit more loose, bring it toward the middle, allows the tracking performance to kind of take over. And if you're a big guy and you're concerned with stability, New Canoe really does it right. It's 41 inches wide, and it's not a tri-hole, design. So it's a little bit smoother. So you got that primary and secondary stability. It turns better than you would expect a boat that size to turn. I'm not going to say it's a speedboat, but for that price range, I would definitely look at New Canoe. Plus they do free parts for life. That's another thing I feel like they may not market that the best, but it's legit.
Keep talking. Give me an example, like how that plays out.
So when you buy a New Canoe, you get the paperwork with it. You can go online to their website. You can register your kayak, which costs nothing. And then if anything of that boat falters for any reason for the lifetime you have that kayak, you go on their website, you go to replacement parts, you tell them what you need. And it's like buying something from Amazon on their website, but you get a coupon code for 100% off. Now you do pay shipping. So that's just know that. But if it's parts, they send it regular mail. I think.
And they actually have it in stock?
If they have it in stock, yeah.
Right.
Which I don't think that's really a problem now, but it was at one time.
Right.
I think I had a Frontier 12 that I needed. The side handle came apart, so I ordered a pair off of them, and I think the rubber handles to my front hatch. It cost me I think it was less than $2 to have it shipped.
That's it.
And that was it. I didn't have a gatekeeper asking me questions on how I'm using the kayak or how I'm hauling it or storing it. There was no questions asked. And that's customer service. And that's one thing that I'm passionate about personally is, there's a lot of companies out there that sell the same kayaks I sell. There's a lot of companies that, there's companies out there that ship them now. Nobody is going to outservice me. So when I see companies out there that take care of their people like that, I kind of gravitate toward that a little bit. Because to me, if you're going to come to me and spend, I'm not rich by any means. So to me, $600, $800, that's still a lot of money to me. When somebody's coming in and wanting to spend that much money or more with me, I want them to feel like they're valued, because they are. They can go anywhere and spend their money. And I feel like the last couple of years, I feel like customer service has really died down with companies. And I feel like some of those companies that do it really well and do it right are kind of the cream's rising to the top, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, from a content creator point of view, I can't tell you how many companies contact me weekly. Yeah. Wanting to do something. And I would say 99.9% of the time it's no. But
I've turned down a couple of things. I haven't had a lot of stuff, but
the reason I turn them down is because it's customer service. Yes. I'm checking their reviews. I'm checking their Google ratings. I'm reading the negative, the positive ones, to see if it's, is there a systemic issue? Because if someone buys something on my recommendation, my name's on it. And that means a whole heck of a lot to me. Yeah. And because I want that company to take care of someone post recommendation, right? And so I don't lock arms with too many companies for that very reason.
I had a weird thing. I had a company reach out to me, and it was basically like a foreign, almost like a foreign yak attack style company where you could tell it was somebody that kind of 3D printed or molded some rod holders and cup holders and stuff, and asked to do sponsorship. And more I got to looking into that, I'm like, no, I mean, it's irresponsible for me to push Yak Attack and the quality that you get with them, and then next week I'm like, hey, check this stuff out, it's half the cost, and just because it makes me a couple of bucks, it's just not worth it. Because like you said, if somebody uses my platform and orders that stuff through it because of my recommendation, and it's crap,
Right.
that person, one, is probably not going to trust anything I say again, and two, that is the only buck I'm ever going to make from that. So I hear you on that. Like I said, the whole service thing, I do that because I'm like that. If I'm spending my money somewhere, I'm okay spending a little bit more if I feel like I'm valued, as opposed to, you're fixing your own food, waiting your own table, and leaving a tip for somebody that just didn't care. You know what I mean?
Right. So do you think that's, I had Chad Hoover, he had me on, actually he had me on his, we were talking about the conversation topic of Alibaba boats is what he calls them.
Yeah.
How
Uh,
how much of a problem is that, right? Because you got all these companies that do all this R&D, they put a lot of money in it. It gets copied and made overseas, whatever, and then sold at huge discounts.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the quality stuff's not there. Like, how big of a problem is that going to be for the industry leaders who are dropping a ton of cash on the R&D?
For the casual online shopper, it's a problem. If somebody's walking in our store, we'll get asked about it, but it's easy to sell against that personally.
Sure.
Because the quality is not there, and who's going to take care of you?
Yeah, nobody.
If something happens to it, how do you get those parts? If you buy a kayak from Walmart or big box store, sorry. If you go back, if something happens, if a strap breaks on the seat, just something small, you can't go back to that place and buy your replacement parts. The amount of times on a daily basis during the busy season that someone says, hey, because we do kayak, we do plastic welding on all our boats. So anybody that buys something from us, we do a lifetime hull repair, on the hull of the boat. If it's ever
your
cracked,
company does that, yes, regardless of, okay.
Yeah. So it's something that we kind of stand behind the products that we're pushing, and people will bring boats that they bought somewhere else, whether it be big box store or Alibaba, and say, can you fix this? And my first question is, what kind of boat is it? And then they say, well, it's this or that. It's like, well, no, you can't, because the plastic is so thin, or it's a low density polyethylene blend that
different HDPE.
Exactly. And we take a heat gun, we heat the damaged part as well as the plastic that we're molding, blending in with it. And, the amount, again, I'm a DIY guy. But the amount of people that I hear, when someone says, hey, how do I fix this? And it's a hole in the kayak. Well, there's a lot of easy, low cost ways to do it, but you'll get things like, hey, I carry a milk jug and a lighter with me, or I carry, a plastic bucket. That's really not the same.
Not the same plastic.
If it gets you out of a bind, man, I'm all for it. But to be the first stop and only stop you make, I've had people try to do their own fixes, and then I put a heat gun to it, and it looks like water just falling off the kayak. The melting point is different on that plastic. The density, again, if you have a paddle shop somewhat by you, or you can even go on Amazon and buy those little plastic sticks that you can just heat up. Carry some of those with you in a little pouch or in your hull. And then, if you want to do a lighter with that, you can do that pretty decent. But, carrying zip ties and milk jugs and Lowe's buckets, it's not going to be worth it to you. But I kind of went on a tangent there, I know, but the as far as how that affects the industry, it's there. It does water it down a bit, but I also feel like someone that's looking to buy an Alibaba kayak for $300 or $400 is probably not in the market for a bona fide P127 or we know where we're at. We're kind of in that mid to upper tier as far as the kayaks. Perception makes a good budget friendly kayak. Don't get me wrong, but I've tested a lot of this stuff out, and I'm pretty harsh on my opinions on some of the stuff, a little bit more than some, but it's because when I see them, they're used. So we do trade-ins.
Okay.
Which helps me out quite a bit, because if I see a kayak that constantly has the same issues over and over again when somebody's had it for a year or two, I know what to look for. And I recently did an on the water review for a used kayak that we had that I didn't put it out because it literally felt like I was just crapping all over this company. And this is a really popular brand that, like, I don't want to have any defamation against a kayak company. There's a butt for every seat. Just my butt didn't fit in this kayak very well. And to me, I can put it out there, but I said the amount of people that are going to get on there and say, "Oh, I've been on these for 10 years and I've never had any problems." Like that's fine. I have a big butt, so maybe just my my issue there. And the kayak I'm talking about is Feel Free. So Feel Free, they've got a lot of really good ideas that cater to me. Feel Free was the one that people gravitate to a lot more than the like your Vibes and your Brooklyn kayaks and all that. Feel Free's got that wheel in the keel, the gravity seat. The gravity seat is a lot of hardware in there. It's kind of like this little scissor lift thing that the seat comes up on. That hardware kind of wears out over time, and that's the seat that we would get in every now and then would just fall periodically because whatever was catching it has worn out and it just falls to the floor. So you only have that low seat. The wheel and the keel, you're putting a big heavy kayak, and when you lift it up, that weight is still going to that front handle, but it's also going to that back wheel, and it creates this little, you got the wheel on the back and it creates this little shearing action. So the hardware that holds those wheels in starts to work itself loose. And when people start to complain with water coming in the hull and they don't know where it's from, that's usually the first place we look at. So if you have a wheel in the keel and let's say it's over 70 pounds, to me, that's just no good. If it's under that, it's not that big a deal. But when you have all that weight going in that one point, all of that weight is going to that wheel. And when you're bouncing it over rocks, it's just like breaking a stick. And eventually it's going to snap. It's plastic. What does plastic do when it gets hot? You're out there in the summertime, it's going to bend and kind of mold. And eventually I've seen a lot of problems from it. So,
yeah. Hey, you know what? You see what you see. You're not crapping on companies. It just,
and again,
they can't get it right all the time.
If someone's in that kayak and they're happy with it, man, more power to you. It's when you're talking about the same price range, there's a lot of options out there. It's just not everybody's got a paddle shop just down the road too. And that's one thing that I always try to remember is, maybe someone doesn't want to drive 200 miles to spend $1,000 on a kayak. Sometimes they're going to go to a big box store and they're going to be fine with it.
Or the one that happens to show up on Facebook Marketplace and it's only going to be there for 24 hours. I need to make a decision quickly because it's the only option.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get what you can get.
Yeah.
All right, let's head over here to the comment section. Bucktail says, New Canoe will be my next upgrade, probably an unlimited. Make sure you look at that PWR, Bucktail.
Yeah. Hey, and the unlimited is still the gold standard, in my opinion. I'm excited to see the PWR. I think the PWR is going to be a fantastic addition to the market. But man, there's things that New Canoe's coming out with that I can't really talk about right now. But just know that they're evolving. They're doing things. It's nothing that I would hold off on buying the unlimited for by any means, but said they're going to keep pushing the envelope. The unlimited, to me, the swivel seat, it's the first real kayak that had that swivel seat option, and that's little stuff like that, I don't want to call it a gimmick, but that's stuff that gauges interest with people. Like a swivel seat, it's a Millennium swivel seat. So it's a quality swivel seat. And I feel like some problems get over exaggerated. So they did have a quality issue back in COVID where they had a mold kind of have some issues, and there was maybe some thin spots in the hull. That since has been corrected, and they correct their hull. So they take care of their customers. But, you'll get somebody say, they'll see one video that somebody got once they took delivery of maybe a part of the hull flexing a little bit more than it should.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that I would really stress to everybody listening is on warranty issue. A lot of companies are taking big hits on warranty, and usually about 99% of the things that I see online are really crappy paddle shop customer service.
Okay.
And I think you guys talked about it too, where if you have a problem with your Chevy Silverado, you're not going to go to Chevy. Right. You're going to go to the dealership you bought it at. And I think that's where some of that's getting lost, or some of the balls getting dropped, because things happen. There's sometimes they don't get it right. That paddle shop is going to be the one to take care of you. Because when you're throwing needles at a big company, you're throwing a needle in a stack of needles at that point. That's our burden to bear. You came to our shop and spent all that money. When you come back with a problem, a lot of times it's just, hey, we'll get you into a new kayak. We'll take this one. We'll take care of the warranty issue, get you back on the water right now. Yeah. And that's the easiest thing to do. But I feel like a lot of people lose sight of that. I even heard of one YouTuber. He had a Jackson Nard that he had some really big problems with, and he took it back to the paddle shop, and the paddle shop charged him, I want to say it was like 15% restocking fee.
What?
It's a warranty.
Right.
And that boat is $4,200.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of money. Yeah, that guy will never paddle a Jackson ever again. And that had nothing to do with Jackson. That had everything to do with that paddle shop. I'm thinking, oh my God. But, and again, he's in something he absolutely loves. So again, that may have been the route that he would have went anyway. But the fact that the paddle shop did that to him, it's, you get lost in the numbers with some places, so to speak. And again, I'm fortunate enough to work for, we're still a locally owned kind of mom and pop place, but we've built over the last 20 years, it's really built a reputation on taking care of customers. You're not going to see ads, and we don't have any billboards or television commercials. And I'm the only one that I know of that really does YouTubing on it. But, you treat people right, they're going to talk about you. If you treat somebody wrong, they're going to tell twice as many people about you than if you take care of them. So, that's just the way it goes.
There's something to be said about that. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of research done on YouTube, and reading all the things and listening to all the. There's a missing angle here that gets overlooked a lot, and you just mentioned it. I mean, really taking the time. It may be worth driving 3 hours to go to that paddle shop that is trusted and has great reviews. That may be worth it 100%.
If you're stuck between one or two boats, take it out on the water. You're going to know within a few minutes whether that's the right choice for you or not. If you're not comfortable sitting in something in the first 10 seconds, you're going to hate that thing after a few hours on the water. So just, that's what I always tell people is sit in it, play with it, pick it up, move it around, play around with the seat, imagine yourself being in that kayak. You can do all the research you want to, but until you get hands-on on some of this stuff, you're kind of missing, you're wasting a lot of time, so to speak. Get some information, talk to some people online. Again, I'm always available on the comment section of my videos. I try to answer all of them. I'm at the point where I can still do that. Obviously, once you get so far down the road, I know that gets a little harder, but I'm still in this to help people out. To it usually, about 75% of the people that watch my videos are in the market to buy something. And I always love to hear it. It's like, man, you made my choice so much easier. I was in between this and another one, and seeing somebody go through these features, that's exactly what I was looking for, or that was the thing that was hanging me up on it originally. And that's what I like to see. Because again, the worst thing out there is to make the wrong choice with your money, and just nobody wants you to hate it. But the biggest thing is buy it from someone you trust. If you've got a paddle shop by you and you ain't feeling like you're taken care of, probably right.
Pick up on those clues early on, or how they treat you before you buy it, because it's going to look the same or maybe worse. After they already got the money. Question here from Peyton Hatfield. Opinions on the new canoe pivot drive, and that's followed up by Bucktail. Yes, 3-star question. I want the answer to that.
I've used the pivot drive. I like the pivot drive. It's unique. So the one
Walk
thing
us through
I will say,
for those who don't know what it is,
it's the pedal drive for new canoe. It is an addition that you can make to any new canoe kayak, which is unique. You don't have to buy a specific pedal drive kayak to have the pedal drive option.
Awesome.
But I talked about the flat transom on the new canoe. So all the new canoes have that flat space on the very back. That's where the prop goes off. Okay. So it's like having a trolling motor mounted on the back of the kayak that you're controlling with your feet. And it is a belt drive system. So it is very smooth. It is adjustable. The one thing about it is if you like the open deck space, if you like having all that room without clutter, it does clutter up your deck quite a bit. So keep that in mind, but it's a no drill option. So everything you need comes out of the box. It's got it's got 2 little threaded inserts on your left side. That's where your steering handle goes. It attaches to the back. The pedal drive, it's like so here's your transom here, and here's your pedal drive, and it just goes up and down like that, just like a trolling motor. Okay. It's got a little cable you pull, and if you hit something with it, it kicks up. So
nice.
Yeah, it's a really, really nice option. It makes a really large kayak handle that much better because it's in the back. So it has both a rudder and a prop functionality to it. So nice. If you're steering it, your prop is your rudder also. It just turns your prop, and then you're basically spinning that thing 360 degrees. So it's a great product. It is a little pricey. So
how much does that run?
I want to say it's $13.99 right now.
Ooh, la la la.
So, the problem with that is you can buy the Motor Guide XI3 with the GPS spot lock right now for $13.99.
Yeah, right.
Now, granted, you got to buy the wiring kit and the battery and all this stuff, but if you're already in that neighborhood, what's an extra couple $100? You know what I mean? So, but if you're just wanting a good pedal drive option, it's a worthwhile option. When you add that pedal drive option to any of New Canoe's lineup, you're still in the same neighborhood as you are with a lot of manufacturers that have a pedal drive kayak, albeit Native or Bonafide or Hobie or even Jackson. So
I'm reading the comments over here, and I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds great until you get into the weeds, right? I think Scott over here, Alex over here, you can't, I got my propel drive, I just lifted up from my center console, and within literally less than 10 seconds I'm going again. You gotta how do you get that off?
It's valid. So what a lot of people do is they'll bring it up and then spin it, but that's not always going to work. So that is something to consider, though. And that really with any prop drive, that's something to consider, but that's a valid concern. That's one reason I do like the Hobie fin drive is that if you're doing a lot of vegetation fishing, that's really nice. And then, like you said, even with Native, Native comes standard with those little indexers on them now, so you can easily bring them up. They didn't always used to come on that. They used to be the biggest pain in the rear end to get those Native drives up because you just got that little narrow passageway that you just push that little lever down.
And prop index now.
Yeah. Before they had that, before it was an optional upgrade.
Taking your hand down there.
Yeah, you're trying to look down there and
they come a long way. I love it.
And
Graham got a question. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, finish your thought.
I was just saying,
I
don't have a lot of vegetation around here, unfortunately.
Okay.
We have two really large lakes, and they're very cover poor. So as I said, we don't have that problem here, but any prop, that's one thing I do like about the Jackson pedal drive system is you can kick that just with a little lever. You can kick that all the way up into the hole. You can take the fishing line. You can take, grass, weeds right out of there, and then just with a little lever, it just deploys it back down. So
that is pretty sweet. I was at my local shop, and I was like, "Oh, all right, I kind of like that."
You have a shallow water option on there too, so it's deep water, shallow, and then all the way up into the hole. Yeah,
put it at an angle. No, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I like that. And my local shop's getting ready to do where they let you rent one for the day. So if you want to take a full fledged on fishing kayak out for the day, you for $50. You can do that. I know.
That's not a bad idea. We do a demo day once a year where each location will have their own demo weekend, and we'll have a local waterway where we'll just have a ton of kayaks sitting outside, and we'll just put people in and out of them. And it's a good way for people to really experience things that they wouldn't normally be into.
Mm-hmm.
We don't charge $50 for that, but
this is more like you take it out, you bring it back later today type of deal, not just hop in it and do a circle. But I don't know, pretty neat. All right, let's head over here to the comments again. Jeremy Martin, skiff is my next kayak purchase. Jeremy Martin also again, big rig is overpriced.
Hey,
to your point,
Jackson are my people. I work really closely with them. I do the orders with Jackson and the warranties. They're great people, and their customer service is really top notch. They're going through a little bit of a transition, I feel, because if you look at their lineup back in even 2021, they had a lot of kayaks in that lineup. So
1 second, TV turned on for whatever reason. You can hear that in the background.
I could see it. Yeah.
All right, sorry. Apologize.
So in 2021, Jackson had six or seven kayaks, all within $300 of each other.
Oh, okay.
They shrunk that down, and they did away with the Coosa, which I know why they did away with the Coosa. Drew Gregory went to Crescent Fishing, and that was kind of his signature boat, which he designed the Shoaly with him.
Right.
It is what it is. But they had the Coosa, they had the Liska, the U-Pick, the Coosa HD, the Big Rig HD, the Big Rig FD. There was just so many kayaks, and they were all within. They were all within $1,300 to $1,800. So all in that price range. And some of them did really well. Some of them failed to kind of differentiate themselves from each other. And so they went from that to right now, the only paddling kayaks they have are the Coosa X and the U-Pick. They have a Bite Angler, but I don't really consider that in their fishing lineup because it's a Bite Wreck with two fishing rod holders installed on the back of it. So, but right now that's their fishing lineup is the Coosa X. They did away with the HD, which a lot of people were upset about. And then they made it's a really comfortable, really big kayak. And it does really well on moving water. It's 98 pounds. And some people have even said that it's even heavier than that, but that's a
big girl.
Yeah. And I took it down a flooded creek earlier this year, and I said it did really well. But like I said before, getting that thing to and from the vehicle, and then when you're selling that as a creek and river fisher or a pond hopper, it's kind of hard to do that with a kayak that size.
Yeah. Here's a question from Peyton Hatfield. She says, the seat interfering with the rudder control on the Jackson Big Rig FD is crazy to me. I honestly don't know what she's talking about. So help me out here.
They probably watched my video. That was got it out on the water. And, of course, I went into the shop. We had the kayaks at our store for the unveiling. So we weren't able to show it to anybody, but I'm unwrapping. I'm just making sure everything is where it needs to be. And the seat trims forward and backwards. So it's the same exact hull design that they used 3 years ago.
Okay.
But they put the new seat on it and the new seat riser system for the high and low seat. Well, when those are moved to a certain point, you can't use the rudder. It bangs into the seat riser system. So
Seems like a big oversight.
Do what?
If you're a short person, right? If you move it forward, it's when it's running into it.
Or a tall person. So
because you got two of the sports. So if it's really far back or really far forward.
Yeah, and honestly, that's something that's going to be really easily fixed. But unfortunately, it's kind of where it's at right now.
Sure.
Depending on the height someone is, it's not going to be an issue at all. Me at 6'5", it was a little bit of an issue. It's still a really stable kayak. It's still got a really wide turning radius, so the handling is probably not what someone would expect at that price range. So yeah, it's what they said was very similar to the overall consensus on that kayak is it's really overpriced, and at a market where it's flooded with innovation and value and features, it's not really that feature-rich kayak that people are looking for at that price range. If you're at $4,000, unless you've been longing for that big rig kayak, you got options. You got a lot of options, and that may not be in the top 5 in that price range.
What would be the only reason you would tell someone, hey, the big rig FD? I mean, it's just big guys. Is that what you're looking at there?
Somebody comes in and says, hey, I hated that they got rid of the big rig.
And I want one.
But I want one. Yeah. And I said, I know I'm kind of skinning my own hide there with Jackson. Like I said, I have faith in them. I do. It just, for me personally, again, someone may get on that kayak and then that may be the thing for them. So that's another thing is personal preference. It's not my kayak.
Sure.
But somebody can get on that and then they can get on other kayaks. Say, man, that big rig was phenomenal. But
100%.
Yeah. But to me personally, a kayak in that price range needs to be motorized both on the bow and the stern fairly easily. Mm-hmm. And you don't get that with the big rig. You do get it on the stern, but it is stable and is really comfortable. And there's a lot of room on that kayak. So there are some really value features on that specific kayak, but it's not something we're not going to be ordering a whole warehouse full of them. I'll put it that way.
All right. I got a question from CS Yak Fishing. He says, looking for a cheaper pedal drive for my dad. Thoughts about the Perception Showdown 11.5. I've never been in one. I currently own a Bonafide RS 117 and a P127.
The Showdown's really underrated in my opinion. So the Showdown is the Perception Outlaw with the Perception pedal drive on it.
Okay.
The benefit of that is you get a really big pedal drive fishing kayak for around, I want to say it's around $22.99.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's
wow.
It solves the problem with the Outlaw, because when I said the Outlaw was really sluggish in the water, you got a pedal drive on it. That does correct that issue. I did, a real good friend of mine now that one of the groups that we sponsor, he had a Vibe kayak and he traded it in for that kayak, and he's won fishing tournaments in that Showdown. So it's not what I would call a bottom of the barrel pedal drive kayak by any means.
Yeah.
It's not an okay-ish kayak. It's a little beyond that, but it's a feature-rich Outlaw with a pedal drive, a rudder setup, and it's got a neat little kind of removable zipper pod in the front hatch there. So you do get kind of that removable gear storage there. I really like it. If you're looking at it, I would definitely suggest, if you are able to get it out on the water, make sure that's something you want. But for the price, you can't beat it. And when you're talking about that $2,200 price range, there's not a lot of feature-rich pedal drive kayaks.
Options. Right.
Native makes a good one in the Propel 10 that's really lightweight. But if you're wanting to haul a lot of gear, that Showdown might be a little bit better for you.
Yeah. And I have an older Native Slayer Propel 10 pedal drive, and I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that. It's 67
the Propel
pounds,
10,
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, the Propel 10 without the seat and the drive, I want to say it weighs like 62 pounds.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's insane to me for a native, especially.
Right.
And then that's the kayak that someone tells me that it's just them going around solo, and it's good. It's a good price competitive point, and it's easier to get around than say the Titan 12-foot or a much heavier kayak. But yeah, it's a really good option.
All right. I got a couple more comments here. I see we have like 67 people on right now, which is pretty freaking awesome. If you haven't done so yet, please hit the like button on this video, kind of give it some extra juice with the algorithm. It likes to feed, and it's always hungry. All right. Tony Smith said, Andy sold me my Outlaw. Give us some props, Andy, when you're talking about the Outlaw earlier.
Hey, Tony, how's it going, man?
Fast exit the barge, though. Right on.
Yeah.
We were talking about the kind of repairs, and you do them warranty-wise, but Lost and Tackle had the question. Do you like do that ad hoc? Is there a cost to like a scupper hole repair? It sounds a little too close to home, Lost and Tackle, but
if they bought the kayak from us, it's done free of charge for the lifetime they have the kayak. I did do a video on my channel about how to fix your kayak, and I show how to plastic weld with really simple tools. Nice. And I'm talking about a Harbor Freight heat gun, some plastic that you can buy from Amazon or from a lot of times a local paddle shop, because when we get those warranty boats, we have to destroy them. So we keep that plastic for that reason. A lot of times they've got plastic that they're more than willing to part ways. I know I am. So yeah, it's pretty easy to do when you understand the purpose of what you're doing. So not just melting plastic on top of the damage, heating up the damaged part, and then twisting and blending it in. And I show how to do all of that on that video. So I'm not just trying to plug my channel there by any means, but it does
plug your channel. It's a good channel. You got a lot of good quality stuff to
I appreciate
share.
That. But yeah, I do a video on how to repair your kayak, and I kind of go over why it's not good to use certain types of plastics. Don't use JB Weld. Don't do any of that stuff. It was a funny thing is I was monetized a short time before I did that video, and literally when I look on it, I'm talking about not doing JB Weld on the kayak, and the little banner ad on the bottom of the screen was JB Weld.
You said it. You said it. It picked it up.
Yeah, that algorithm.
Well, tell me what you think about this. Cause I did a kayak weld. I sat back too hard on my Native Slayer Propel 10, and I had seat risers, so it probably wasn't. And there's a plastic strip that kind of helps disperse the weight, but it cracked in the corner back there, and it's a pain in the butt place to fix. So I'm curious on your thoughts, because I did a video on it, and I used one of those staples that you can heat up.
Yeah.
And I also used mesh that I melted in, but I bought the Native Slayer strips because I did a bunch of, the HDPE, all that plastic. It's not the same. You can't use the buckets. You think you can. There's a lot of, it was fascinating doing the research on it, and it's held up like a boss. What would you say to a video like that?
I think it's great. The mesh gives you, it's very much like the drywall fix. It gives more structural integrity to it. The one thing that I would say to people is, trying to diagnose your problem. If it's something, if it was dropped or something freak happened, that's one thing. If it's a structural issue, a lot of times if you have access to underneath the hull, having something to reinforce that. So if it's a seat, a lot of people that had the old Kusa HDs from Jackson had this problem where you had, when the seat was sitting directly on the hull of the kayak, it would develop a crack just because of the way it was made there. You can weld it, but it's going to happen again. You have to put some dense foam blocking or something to reinforce it to where all that weight isn't coming down and bending that plastic so much. There's not a lot of stuff out there right now, I feel, is a problem with that. And I know there's been some issues with Hobies cracking on this, where the seat goes on there. But a lot of times just knowing, if you're a bigger guy or something, or if you're using it a lot, just having something underneath that pressure point to kind of take some of the pressure off of that, because it's plastic. Sun and water and heat do some crazy things to plastic. And, some of us use our kayaks more than others, but, just if you hear problems, diagnose it, get some support underneath there. Because when you open some of these kayaks up, you'll see those foam blocks that's made to support that deck to keep it from flexing and warping over time or cracking. Sometimes you just need a little bit more under there. And like what you're saying, the back corner of that seat where all of that weight is constantly on. Sometimes just, canoe blocks, you can buy those for like, a couple of bucks, and it's a really dense foam. You can shape it down foam and then put it. Yeah. That's always a good idea to do.
Wow. You're just bringing the heat tonight. I love it. Here's a question, and we're way over time. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good, man.
All right, good. Well, let's go then, because I still got a question. Joe Harris got a question for you. Why? And I guess I don't know the sales on the Bonafide P127. I own one, love it. But he asked the question: why is the Bonafide, the P127, not sold well?
That's a really good question. And I didn't know if that was just us or just nationwide. We have not sold that kayak well at all. And
really,
to me, it's the biggest surprise of the kayak industry, in my opinion, from last year. When I say last year, 2022, we sell so many Bonafides. We sell so many SS127s. And when they take that little gear pod and the 127 out, they go, "Oh, is that where your pedal drive goes?" Like, no, they don't have a pedal drive. When they finally came out with a pedal drive, we were thinking we are going to sell so many of these things because people have been asking about it for a long time. Right. And in my opinion, the price point was good. It was $3,099, brand new. And I mean, we sold them, but we sold a very, very few of them. It was interesting because I've taken it out. It's a phenomenal kayak. The speed of it, the handling, the comfort, everything, it checks all the boxes. It's not as pricey as some of the other stuff on the market in the same, what I would consider the competition. I don't know. That's a good question. And that's one that I don't really have the answer to, because sometimes just things don't work out, or if the market is really crowded in that area, because even with big adventures, you have the Slayer Maxes, you have the Titans, and both the 10 and the 12, you have the Bonafide P127. They're all really crowded in that area. The Titans and the Slayers are a little bit more established. There's a lot more experience with it. And then maybe Bonafide didn't do the best job of marketing it, because that does have something to do with it. You don't see a lot of videos out there on it. But it's a great kayak and it's worth the money. It's just, it just didn't really move as fast.
Here's a question for you, since we're kind of talking along the subject. Most criminally underrated fishing kayak out there today, in your opinion?
Man, criminally underrated. I'm going to sound like such a homer here. The New Canoe Flint.
Okay.
The Flint, so much gets put on. Yeah. So much gets put in on the Unlimited and the Frontier that I feel like that one gets overlooked so much. And if I could have only one kayak, that would probably be the one that I would take. That's one of their best paddling kayaks. Their fastest kayak is the Pursuit, but their Pursuit is like a 13.5-foot long kayak that doesn't really fit everyone's, transportation there. The Flint is just, it doesn't have the swivel seat, but it's got the same seat on it. It's got a nice padded deck. It's got a high weight capacity. It is remarkably fast. You can still add the pedal drive to it. It comes with flush mount rod holders. You can do the black pack back there. It's a lot of securement, a lot of gear track around there. Yeah. And the gear pod that they sell now for the Unlimited also fits the Flint. So it's a Flint / New Canoe. So that same pod you can put on the Flint. And man, just a great river and creek fishing kayak as well as an open water kayak. Not everyone's cup of tea, because again, some people need that big, stable, wide kayak, especially out on lakes. But
Yeah,
man, that's a phenomenal kayak that not a lot of people talk about.
there you go. There's your next video idea and the title: most criminally underrated fishing kayak on the market today. I'm telling you, it'll go.
Yeah.
It will go. Everyone like, what does Andy have for us today? The bearded paddler, folks. Hey, you know what? We're at we're almost at 2 hours. And so I'm gonna have to bring you back on, because we only like scratched the surface on this. And I just love your demeanor. I can tell you're passionate about it. I can tell that you I don't know, you're customer service oriented, by just how you focus your answers to your questions. They're measured, and I just appreciate that. And so we're going to have you back on the show. I'm going to ask you, who do you work for? But I want you to share that after you share us. Where can we find you online?
So I work for a company called Ozark Mountain Trading Company. The website for them, which it's still the website is still kind of been redesigned, where we do the Affirm financing and all that. You can select which store to pick it up at, but it's Ozark, M as in Mary, T as in Tom, C as in Charlie.com. So OzarkMTC.com.
Yep.
And again, great company ran by a great family. I've been in sales and marketing for pretty much my whole working life. And this job came open. I was already a kayaker already, of course, but my passion is, again, dealing with people, leadership, and they kind of allow me to do things my own way, obviously within certain reason. I'm doing it my own way as long as it kind of jives with their philosophy, which our philosophy is service and selection and, customer service. Obviously that's, and to me, the reason why I'm so big on that is it makes everything so much easier. I've worked in sales before where I have no control over my product. So if somebody has a problem with something, there's nothing I can do. I'm just sitting there, looking like an idiot and just sympathizing, but not offering any solutions. So with this industry, if they're not happy with their kayak, hey, bring it back. We'll switch it out. We'll put you in something when you do want. It makes the decision a lot easier, and we're not commission based. So you're not going to come in and get a used car salesman trying to get you in a Hobie when all you really need is just a good little recreational kayak.
When all you need is a flint.
Yeah, absolutely. Criminally
underrated. Yeah, I'm telling you, steal it.
Down.
Take it. You take that.
I'm going to give your listener a commission for that one. That's too much.
That was yours truly right there. So the Bearded Paddler, head over to his YouTube channel, folks. Hit that subscribe button, and he'll just continue. I mean, you're going to have the latest and greatest, the newest. Oh yeah. And so if you want to stay on top of it, because how many kayaks do you guys have in stock?
We usually, in the busy part of the season, I've usually got anywhere between, just in my location, around 12 to 1,400.
Jeez.
Again, that's on the high end, but that's quite a bit. We do Wilderness System, Perception, Dagger, Winona Canoes, Hobie, Jackson, Bonafide, Native. We actually started getting into some inflatables. I did a video on the NRS inflatable.
We didn't even talk about that tonight. That'll be for another day.
Yeah. But I mean, in the new canoe, of course, there's so much stuff out there. There's so much quality stuff that it's kind of hard to decipher what's the right thing for you. And, just my biggest thing is always watch where you're getting your information from. Where's it coming from? Is it coming from what's right for somebody else or what's right for you? That's, if you've ever seen that movie, Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So the whole question of, sell me this pen.
Yeah.
He never answered it in that movie. That drove me nuts. So I'm kind of an obsessive personality. I've got to know the answer to that question. And, so the guy that movie was made after, he does his own podcasting and videos, and he said he's looking for questions. So sell me this pen. Well, this is a nice pen. No, ask them the question like, what do you use a pen for? Is it for business? Is it for pleasure? Qualifying questions. And then once someone tells you what they're looking for, then you say, okay, well, I've got here is this pen. This is going to give you what you need for this, this, and this. It's the same way with kayaks. Someone comes in and say, hey, I'm floating rivers and creeks. I want to fish a little bit, but mainly float. My budget's $1,000. Like you saw some of your listeners, what's the best fishing kayak for $1,000 or under? That's the questions. And then you don't need to show them every single kayak that's out there. That's pretty much going to narrow it to about 2 or 3 kayaks. And after that, it's just, okay, which one feels right to you? Which more comfortable? What handles a little bit better? After that, you're picking out color. So it's not as complicated as it should be. But again, there's so much stuff out there. Everyone's trying to sell something, and top 10 best fishing kayaks, and you haven't heard about 6 of them. There's always the heavy hitters out there, but just be careful of if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yep. And that's why I wanted to have you, I don't try to tout myself I've been around enough kayaks and heard enough conversations, but I haven't been in a lot of them, to be completely honest. I'm not sitting here trying to position myself as the guru because I know I'm not. And so when I found your page and I looked at your about, and you're like, okay, manage one of the largest 1,500 kayaks. You see him. I was like, I gotta get this guy on the show. So I'm gonna wrap it up. Andy, you freaking rock, man. We got to get you back on. Hey. Head over to the Bearded Paddler, hit that subscribe button, or to take a road trip to Cotter, Arkansas. Right?
Cotter is gorgeous.
Shake his
Bald
hand,
Eagles, White River, two large lakes. Bassmaster does a fishing tournament down here once a year. Like, there's a lot going on for waterways. Buffalo National River, it's the nation's first national river, runs right through here as well. So again, there's people, it's kind of a destination area, but for kayaking and kayak fishing, it's ground zero in my opinion. Obviously there's different places that do some things better, but just for your recreational floater, scenic watcher, wildlife watcher, it's a great place to be.
No, I love it. Well, I would love come over to I have over 800 videos now on my channel. So if you didn't hit that sub yet, please, I would absolutely love you to be a part of the Wendell Fishing community. Do the same thing for the Bearded Paddler. Guys, next week, I have Retro Bassin on. I'm pretty excited about this show coming up because we're going to be talking about all of the as seen on TV lures from like the 90s.
That sounds awesome.
And he knows all like the backstories and have met the owners. And he sent me a care box that had some of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in my life. I mean, we're all familiar with the helicopter and the banjo. And
yeah.
But he has he goes deep into like the rabbit holes of some of these as seen on TV lures. So it's going to be a blast next Tuesday night, 8:30. I will see you then. Andy, appreciate it, man.
Hey, man. Hopefully we'll see you again on here sometime.
All right. Sounds good. See ya.
All right. Appreciate you, man.